Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episodes and we have our guest. I think already our audience from World Talent Economy Forums, they know about Mr. Brands, and he already introduced about artificial intelligence, and he has some excellent idea and excellent work he's doing with other companies. He gonna share with us today, and we're gonna listen, and we're gonna find out that how in the COVID period many people now in depressions, many people has many problem with their mental health. So hopefully we're gonna solve these things together. So hello, Mr. Brian Talabi, how are you?
Hi, Sharif. Thank you so much for having me on your show again, Doctor. It's fantastic to be with you and with your audience.
Yes, thank you. Actually, World Talent Economy Forums, we are also planning for AI related research as well as conference. So how do you want to share your experience with us about the mental health issues and how AI can solve these things?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've seen over the past couple of years is a massive increase in mental health issues, both in the United States and around the world. We've seen an over 300% increase in depression and clinical depression in the United States over the past year alone. We've seen over a 70% increase in clinical anxiety disorders. PTSD has skyrocketed. We now have over 8 million Americans with PTSD, over a third of which are severe cases of PTSD. And so the question then is, how do we solve these problems? Now, part of it comes from COVID, right? Because as we know, people have been staying at home, not connecting with other people. And we all know that while everyone is trying to stay physically healthy and physically safe from this terrible virus, oftentimes people are not taking care of themselves socially, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and from a diet and exercise perspective. And that can have a massive impact. On the flip side, and of course, COVID has exacerbated this issue, there has been an underlying issue in the United States, in the Western world, and really globally, where because the technology and society has been changing quite rapidly, oftentimes people aren't able to adapt to the changing society to keep up with the changing world, especially in technology. And so that has a massive impact on people's mental health. And then, of course, as we discussed before, and as you know, and anybody who's watched The Social Dilemma with my friends Joe Toscano and Tristan Harris know very clearly that oftentimes with social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any of these, people often compare their everyday to other people's highlight reels. And so this has caused a massive mental issue for especially Gen Z, as well as my generation, millennials, as well as the younger folks that are coming of age now. And so this causes a massive issue where people are so connected to their Facebook, to their Instagram, to their social media, and they're constantly seeing reasons why they shouldn't be happy. There's these dopamine hits that Facebook and other social is able to take from us, and so people get addicted to these social media tools, and without even realizing it. And it can be as powerful as heroin or the most powerful drugs. And so the question then that you brought up is, with all these issues, how do we solve them? And so I'm a huge believer in artificial intelligence. I think it's going to change almost every industry in the world, much like the internet did in the late 90s and in the intervening time. And so with artificial intelligence now, there's a company called NeuralTunes, for example, that uses the underlying technology that we built at Ahura AI to hyper-personalize music, because it turns out that there's been almost 2 decades of inquiry, scientific inquiry and experimentation about this. And it turns out if you have the right music at the right time, it can actually solve for a lot of the issues with mental health. And so, as you know from our previous conversations, Dr. Sharif, that with Ahura AI, we're able to collect over 10,000 biometric data points every second on every user to identify the kind of educational content to provide. Now, right now, we're also partnering with quite a few musicians and experts in Los Angeles, here in the United States, to be able to figure out which music should we provide to a user in real time to enable them to deal with a lot of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, clinical depression, clinical anxiety, suicidal ideation, and other mental health issues.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. One specific point, like in COVID period, actually because of the unemployment issues, because of the mm, many things like economic disasters,
Mhm.
family issue, many crises, many people right now in depressions, and the mental health is very important thing right now. Even we are working with one of the Australian university, they are also doing more research on mental health. But my question is that your technology is available for the healthcare systems, how they can engage with this kind of technology and how they can know more about your clients. And if you want to share something with our audience, you can. Any
Yeah,
presentations, any videos or anything? Yeah.
sure, absolutely. I can share a video that explains it. I have a couple of videos that I can show. I
Mhm.
guess the first video I'll share is an explainer that explains what we do at Ahura. Here, I guess let me share my screen with you.
Mhm. Okay. Yes.
Let's assume for a moment that I am your tutor and I'm teaching you. As I'm walking through a lesson with you, I'm going to be watching your body language. I'm going to be watching where your eyes are looking. I'm going to be watching your posture, watching your facial expressions. We give off signals verbally and non-verbally that are an indicator of our mood. And we all know that emotions drastically affect our ability to learn. What Ahura is doing is building technology that is able to read those verbal and nonverbal cues that we give off. We're utilizing everything from biometric reading, camera analytics, voice recognition to say, here's my emotional state at this exact moment, just like a tutor would be watching you and at that moment call an audible and say, okay, Mark is currently this, so actually let me adapt.
What we are building is a scalable, artificially intelligent educational platform that represents a massive leap forward in the way our students are educated. The students that are taught one-on-one, let's say by a private tutor, 90% of those students are able to score in the top 20th percentile. Now, when you compare that to the traditional standard delivered lecture format, it begs the question, are 80% of our students failing, or is the entire structure designed in a way that is failing our students? I was born in a tiny village in southeastern Iran in the desert with no running water and no electricity. I got a chance to go back to Iran. It was interesting to see many of my friends were farmers and sheep herders. I'm not any smarter than any of those kids. I wonder if any of those kids had the same opportunities that I've had, what they would be able to do for their communities and for the world.
We are, as Brian has mentioned, on the precipice of massive automation that's going to lead to large-scale unemployment, which, if we don't handle that properly, is going to lead to civil unrest, scarcity, and we know what happens to human nature and powers when we have to fight over resources. It leads to war. We are using artificial intelligence, using that personalization, using the ability to provide the highest quality education in the world, give to everybody, to create peace, to create prosperity, and to shift society safely into kind of a post-automation world.
When I first got into the assemblage, I fell in love. Every day I meet incredible people who are focused on solving some of the world's most intractable problems. And through the discussions and conversations, we're able to come up with innovative solutions to address those needs. Is it possible to provide this technology for free to the third world? Is it possible to give this technology to students in small villages in Uzbekistan, to kids in Namibia and sub-Saharan Africa? Is it possible to give this technology to kids in refugee camps for free? I believe we can, and I believe we will. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Excellent, excellent. I think that our audience also enjoy your sessions. That Mohammad Sohail Rana, hello sir, nice to see you again with excellent topic. Araf Mehraz, thank you sir for joining today's discussions. Humaira Tandila. Hello, sir. Nice to see you again. Thank you for your time in World Talent Economy Forum. So I think that your works and everything's actually our audience really enjoy a lot.
Thank
So
you very much.
beside that, that I want to know, even World Talent Economy Forum, we have a strong engagement with this developing economy. But
Yep.
still, I think that you have a very big rooms. Many of the millions of the people, maybe still you can reach, you can engage with, and maybe they can be benefited by your technological skill developments projects, and many things may be possible. So what's your future strategy? How do you want to explore your opportunities with your company around the world? What's the strategy that you can collaborate with the Asia Pacific? Yeah.
Absolutely. So right now we're engaged with the X Prize. I'm sure you're familiar with what the X Prize is. Anusha Ansari initially funded the first X Prize, which created the space race. And famously, if you remember, Spaceship One, which won the first X Prize, got bought by Richard Branson for over $1 billion. So since then, they have a whole bunch of other prizes, and one of the prizes is for educating adults. And so we've thrown our hat in the ring. They asked us to participate, and we are now competing to prove our technology through the X Prize and through their process. We also are working with the United Nations, with the World Economic Forum, as well as a number of other organizations. Since the last time we spoke, we partnered with the United Nations, with Kenya and Tanzania, and we are going to be rolling out 50,000 licenses in Kenya and Tanzania. That's added to the 30,000 licenses that we're going to be rolling out in Ghana through the Africa 10 initiative, which was founded by the late former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, and his son, Kojo Annan. I've also partnered with several refugee camps, so the Norwegian Refugee Council in Norway, as well as a couple refugee camps in Syria and Turkey. And I'm also partnering with India. Now, I'm very, very interested in partnering with you, Dr. Sharif, in Malaysia, to see how we can provide our technology free of charge for folks in underserved communities in Southeast Asia. Because, as you know from my background, one of the things that I'm extremely passionate about is, while we provide the technology for large corporations in the Western world, to give our technology for free to members of underserved communities, to level the playing field, to enable people that had the same type of background as I did to have access to the same kind of opportunities, both in education and careers, as I had, and of course that a lot of folks around the world still don't have access to. And so anybody that is listening, if you're interested in partnering, we have quite a few additional free licenses that we're still passing out to folks in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world. We prefer to work with organizations that are fairly large, so nonprofits or governmental organizations or universities, so that we can give out blocks of tens of thousands of licenses that then these organizations that we partner with locally are able to distribute, make sure they're going to the right people, make sure people are leveraging the technology to the fullest level. And so anybody that wants to reach out, my email is Brian with a Y, BRYAN, at ahuraai.com. That's AHURAAI.com. And of course, Dr. Sharif, I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation that we had before about how we can partner together.
Thank you, sir. There is one question from Malaysia. Noor Fazrin, she asked you a question. Greetings from Malaysia. How people can detect the difference between normal mood swing and severe mental illness by using advanced technology? Thank you.
That's a very good question, Noor. Thank you for asking that. So I think part of the important thing with artificial intelligence is that the quality of the artificial intelligence is predicated on the quantity and the quality of the underlying data that is used to train those AI models. And so in order to be able to identify whether a person has a severe mental illness or just a mood swing, as you mentioned, it's relevant to get a quantity of data, not only for that individual over time and how they deal with issues that they face throughout their normal life, because as you know, people have ups and downs in relationships and days and so forth. So it's important to get data for that individual to understand that person really well, and also to have an underlying data set for a large quantity of people as well. And that enables you to find lookalikes, that enables you to peg the data that you're collecting and that you're analyzing against a variety of other data points, so that you can actually figure out, is this a short-term thing? Did this person just had a fight with their significant other or have a setback in life, which naturally causes you to have a mood swing or a decrease in your mood, versus a long-term depressive episode or a clinical anxiety episode that can have a much larger impact. Now, in both of those situations, there are ways that you can solve these problems by using music as medicine, because music has been shown to be able to not only alter your mood in various times, also it can enable you to fall asleep more quickly, it can enable you to exercise more effectively, it can enable you to get into flow states and be able to study or be able to do other things more effectively. But it can also be used to actually take care of a lot of the long-term symptoms of severe cases of post-traumatic stress disorder, for example, and give people relief without having people be reliant on pharmaceuticals and drugs that oftentimes have fairly severe side effects.
Excellent. Beside that, like example, AI can solve many things right now, and even though right now economy wise it's a little bit of different situations, but what area your company can solve problem with your capacity? Can you share with our audience, like this company or your company, if you want to share your websites or anything, so we can discuss about that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So our primary focus at Ahura AI is to work on retraining workers for the jobs of the future, as you see on the website right there. The reason we focus on adults is because right now we're in the middle of the largest transition between jobs we've ever seen in human history. We're in what's called the fourth industrial revolution. Now, in previous industrial revolutions that we've had 1 to 2 generations to retrain the populations for new jobs that we were able to create. Unfortunately, this time, we have only 5 to 10 years to retrain a substantial portion of the human population. We're talking about somewhere in the vicinity of 30 to 40% of adults will need to be retrained, because a lot of those jobs are disappearing. They're being replaced by automation and artificial intelligence. Now, any job that you can think of that requires repetitive manual labor will be replaced over the next 5 to 10 years. So anything from food service, office work, drivers, whether they're truck drivers or cab drivers or Uber drivers, retail employees, fast food workers, and so forth. And then after that, you're going to see many people who have repetitive cognitive labor. So accountants, surgeons, lawyers, and so forth will also be replaced. And so then the question is, how do you retrain this population quickly? Because you have to keep in mind that a lot of these folks that are food service employees or drivers or retail employees, they didn't go to college oftentimes. Many of them barely made it through high school. Most of them haven't been upskilled or retrained in decades. And so how do you take a population that hasn't been engaged in continual learning and have a fundamentally different way to train them on new ways of delivering value to the global economic system? And so that's the problem that we are solving at Ahura by hyper-personalizing the content distribution. So, for example, we can figure out at any given point, based on a person's sleep patterns, activity level, their facial expressions and micro-expressions, their eye tracking, what websites they visit, and a number of other factors, over 10,000 data points we collect every second, we're able to identify the optimal way to deliver content to the individual, whether it's text-based learning, experiential learning, or video-based learning. And then even within the videos, we can determine, hey, do we need to have Oprah explain this material to you? Or do we need to have Trump explain it, or Obama, or a 25-year-old Swedish lifeguard, or a 65-year-old British guy with a posh accent and a suit? And it turns out at any given moment, there's a different optimal way to deliver content so that you can actually pay attention much more effectively, learn the material, and retain that information for longer.
Excellent. There are some other issues I think audience want to ask you. Onika Sham, she asked you a question. Hello everyone. Women are more prone to depressions because of their hormonal issue. How far you agree with these points? Anyway, maybe yeah. Yes. Mr. Brand, do you want to add something on her comments, or you want to move with your company's activities? It's up to you. No problem.
Yeah, so I mean, I can answer it really quickly, and I'll say that I'm always very open about things that I don't know, and I am not a psychiatrist. I'm not a mental health professional. I haven't looked at the data to see if women suffer from depression more than men. My understanding is that depression is less connected to hormones, and it's more connected to certain chemicals in your brain that are largely genetic. And so regardless of whether and where the depression comes from, the solutions can provide relief for both men and women. And so if we're able to do that with music rather than a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors that have a lot of side effects, then we're happy to use our technology to provide that value for the world.
Okay. As you are working with these developing nations, with Africa and other countries, what's the outcome? Like example, those who engage with your company, they are doing any kind of AI related job right now, like students, those who develop their skills, or your company help them to get more job opportunity for them?
Yeah, so we're just FYI, we are in a closed beta right now. So we haven't fully launched to everybody. We do have a wait list that's fairly robust. We have over 200 companies that have asked to be on our wait list. And we have a number of companies that we've already signed contracts with. But to answer your question, what we do is after we retrain the populations, whether it's in coding using Python or Java, or we train them on social media management, or how to become customer success reps online, or how to become therapists and so forth. What we do then is we have another partnership with several other organizations where they work with large corporations in Europe and in the United States. So after people go through our education platform, they're then able to find a job immediately working at Western corporations remotely with nothing more than a laptop and an internet connection. So they're able to generate money for themselves and for their families, which can have a fairly large impact, especially for folks in the third world, folks in developing nations, folks in refugee camps, and so forth. Now, in addition to that, one of the things that we do is we're focused on making sure that the data is very safe. And so, whereas some of our competitors and some companies in the tech world choose to just take all the data from folks and sell them, we believe in giving full agency to all of our users. So they get to decide whether we sell that data to other AI companies or advertisers or insurance companies or medical organizations. If they choose to let us sell that data, that user then is entitled to more than 50% of the revenue we generate from selling their data. And so currently we are able to sell that data for roughly $200 per month. And right now we're actually giving 70% of that money back to the user on a monthly basis. So our users all over the world now are able to generate $140 a month by just using our platform and learning how to code in Java or Python. They're able to just get a check constantly in the mail every month. And obviously for folks in New York or San Francisco, $140 isn't that much, but for folks who were a lot like me, we're in a refugee camp, $140 can go really far in a refugee camp. It can go really far in Tanzania or in the slums of India or in Southeast Asia. And so that's one of the things that people have been doing. So if anybody's interested in that, feel free to go on our website, and we have two different wait lists. One is for individual users that want to have access, and then one is for corporates that want to use their technology for their corporation. So feel free to jump on the wait list. Feel free to raise your hand and let us know that you're interested in our technology, and we're happy to roll it out to you and give you the option of using it.
Yes, excellent. Yes, this is your company and everything is very helpful for. I'm sure that for Asia Pacifics and this market. Beside that, like, what your company next 5 years plan? Uh, like, 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 how do you want to cope up this in this COVID period? Because in the COVID periods, many company has lot of challenges and a lot of issues. Uh, what's your strategy, how actually even different company can learn, because you are CEO, you have a lot of experience and you engage with different corporate cultures. So
Yeah,
how, yes, yeah, so
that's
what
a
will,
great
how
question.
you secure? Yes. Mhm.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked that. So the first step is working in the corporate retraining world and getting quite a few customers there and rolling that out to millions of users, having a massive impact. Over the next 5 years, we are already in discussions with heads of state, both in Africa and in other parts of the world, where we're in discussions about rebuilding their entire education platform from scratch. So many of the prime ministers that I've spoken to have told me, they said, Brian, we were able to skip over infrastructure investments and jump to a new layer of distributed systems in everything from energy to telecom, where countries just skipped over landlines and went directly to cell phones. They did that in banking, they did that in energy. And so with the conversations I've been having, both at the United Nations and at the World Economic Forum, with these prime ministers, they say, Brian, instead of spending hundreds of billions of dollars building schools and universities and training teachers and professors, what if we use Ahura AI to roll out first world type education to every member of our population for a very low price? And so that's one of the things we're actively pursuing. And over the next 5 years, that's something that we will definitely roll out. And then long term, I want to be able to provide this for every man, woman, and child. Right now, we're not providing this for school age kids, and we're not even really providing it for college kids. It's mostly for adults that are in the work. But if you can imagine, since we've already proven that our technology can enable people to learn 3 to 5 times faster than traditional education. So if you can take a moment to step back and imagine from kindergarten to 12th grade, being able to learn all of that content, instead of in 13 years, being able to learn it in 4. And then a 4-year university education, being able to learn that in 1 year. That means that by the time someone is finished with 5th grade, so essentially when they're 12 years old, they would have what we in the West have in an educational system from all the way through 12th grade, all the way through the end of college. And that would give students more time then to spend more time actually diving deeper, becoming experts in artificial intelligence, becoming experts in engineering and in quantum and in other things. Now, right now, one of the things that prevents us from doing that is I don't want to have young kids using our platform just because we collect so much data on people. I want to have a conversation in society first around what consent looks like, because if a parent consents for their children to use our platform and we're collecting all this data on them, I don't want to be in a situation where 10 years later a kid says, well, my parent didn't have the right to give that consent on my behalf. And so I think we need to have a conversation in the world around data, around data privacy, around data agency, and then also make sure that kids have full consent and can make the decisions in a way that's going to be impactful before we roll out our technology for children. But long term, I see this as something that can radically transform the entire world and enable us to massively increase the number of educated people that we have in the world. Look, Dr. Sharif, right now, 6.6% of the global population has a college degree. Now we can have a discussion about whether that's the optimal KPI, to use, or if there's a different metric to use, I think there probably is a better metric at some point. But what happens when we 10x that number? What happens when over 60% or 70% of the population of the world has the equivalent of a college degree? I believe that will unlock the potential of the human race in a very real way, and especially unlock the potential of places like Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa, South America, and other parts of the world.
Excellent. One important things I want to know, because World Talent Economy Forums, we have connections around 122 countries right now. North America, Europe, Asia, even Africa, everywhere we try to understand the global economy, and we are trying to all of the intellectual hubs and making connections. And we find one of the like it's actually not a good example, but I have to come up with this example. 28% of the students, those who are more than 18 years of olds, they are actually drop out from from their educational systems. 28%. It's a millions and million peoples. They have to support their family in the COVID periods. That's why they stop their educations and they just start doing different kind of jobs. But in that situations, how your company, because 28% of the developing nations peoples mean a lot, millions of million people. So how your Ahura AI can help this kind of dropout students and give them a proper careers, even they can engage with the local ecosystem and the corporations. Because World Talent Economy Forums, when I invite you, because this message and this research and these things actually give me I'm really sorry about the youth community, those who actually drop out, but how we can work together on that particular point, because this is really really necessary things for right now.
Absolutely. And after this interview, I'm happy to schedule a call with you privately, and I can bring a couple of members of my team to figure out what the next steps are to do a partnership with you to solve this exact problem. Because look, to answer your question, we have to look at the underlying reason that people drop out. Now, there are economic reasons that people drop out. They have to go to work. They have to provide value for their family and generate money for them. And the other component of it is that many students don't do well in school because the education system that we have that hasn't really changed in over 100 years doesn't take into account the differences in students, because people learn differently. We're not all the same. We're not all automatons. Our education system was designed to be a one-size-fits-all approach, to take the lessons of the Industrial Revolution around building factories where people work on one thing at a time, and then you're able to just have a process where you have, everything that you build looks exactly the same, whether you're building tires or clothes or what have you. And so the education system was designed around that. It was designed to train people, number one, to listen to authority. That's why we have bells. That's why there's such a focus on listening to the authority of the teacher, getting in lines when you're in elementary school. In addition to that, it's designed to try to bucket kids and teach all of those kids simultaneously in the same way to save time and to create efficiency. Now, we know, especially in the internet age, that personalization is king. That's why people like Facebook and Amazon and Google and so forth. People need personalization in order to achieve their full potential. And so oftentimes these kids that drop out, it's because they're bored in class, either they're ahead or they're behind, or the way that the teacher is explaining the material to the students is not aligned with the way that that student needs to learn in that moment. And so Ahura is able to solve that problem by figuring out how to convey the information so that the kids, instead of being in class for 8 hours, they can be in class for an hour and a half and learn the same amount of material, and within 6 months be able to get a job where they're able to make significantly more money for their family. Because oftentimes in these communities that you're talking about, these kids wind up going and doing manual labor or selling things in the bazaar or what have you, making pennies, where if they had learned how to become a computer programmer, or if they had learned how to do work on the computer, working online, solving problems for Western corporations, they could get paid 10, 20, 100 times as much money as they would locally doing whatever manual labor they would be doing. And so the important thing is to train people to be able to engage in the digital economy, which is taking over the world, so that they can then earn money that is a more correlate to that, and be able to take care of their families much more effectively.
Mhm. Thank you, thank you. There is one of the specific questions from audience. I think they are observing your show. Mr. Azizur Rahman, hello sir. What effect the AI will have on role, activities, impact, tool, structure, and operations of think tanks in the future?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Look, Azizur, the artificial intelligence is going to have a massive impact on every single industry. The best way to describe it is, if you remember the 90s, when we moved from not using the internet for everything. If you recall, the internet just being message boards with no graphic interface, to 10 years later, suddenly every industry and every corporation had to use it for everything from marketing to hiring to advertising to project management. Artificial intelligence will be the same way. So specifically with think tanks, it depends on how fast AGI comes online. So AGI is what's called artificial general intelligence, which is opposed to ANI, which is artificial narrow intelligence. So a lot of the AI that you and I deal with on a regular basis are ANI. So everything from the Google algorithms to the Facebook algorithms to Amazon to other things. Now, what's really interesting with AGI and an organization, one of Elon's organization, Open.ai, just rolled out GPT-3 about a month or two ago. It's just really fascinating because it's an incredible form of AGI that's able to engage with you. It can name itself. It has intent. It learns things. And so what's really interesting from a think tank perspective is that artificial intelligence can look at a significantly larger amount of data and analyze that data in a much more effective way than a human ever could. And so it will indeed impact all the roles and all the work that think tanks do. Now, in my estimation, it'll still have to work in conjunction with humans, because there's a certain level of creativity, there's a certain level of understanding human behavior that AGI won't get to for at least another 5 to 10 years. So that would be my answer there. And there were a bunch of other questions, but I didn't see all of them while I was talking. I didn't read
Yes. I want to take another questions. Actually, there is a huge audience response. They want to know more. Shahrukh, Mr. Shahrukh, his question is that, hello, sir. As a new researcher, what are the methods which help us to find the right community to search in AI and big data?
That's a good question. I want to make sure I understand it. If you're asking, how do you find a community of AI researchers to engage with? So I can't tell you where you are. I know where I live in the United States. In San Francisco, it's quite easy. You can go in any direction and throw a rock, and you'll probably hit an AI researcher. So there are a lot of us there. If you go to a bar or a club or any party and say AI, like people just swarm to you like bees to a flower. Now, there are a lot of digital communities. If you're familiar with what is the new social media app? Clubhouse. So there's a new social media app called Clubhouse where there's a lot of San Francisco and a lot of AI folks who are engaged. So if you can get yourself an invitation to that, it's a social media platform that's focused entirely on voice. It's a lot of interesting people, a lot of VCs, a lot of entrepreneurs. There are a lot of meetups, I know, in the United States. I don't know where you're from, if there's a ton of meetups around artificial intelligence, but both when I lived in San Francisco as well as when I lived in New York. There were a lot of meetups around artificial intelligence. Now, personally, I've created a community of entrepreneurs called Sandbox Impact. And so what we did is we invited some of the world's top entrepreneurs, investors, global experts, as well as some celebrities that want to use their influence to make the world a better place. So the entire idea is people who are focused on impact and solving for the SDGs, which are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I brought them into a series of mansions during COVID. We test everybody to make sure nobody's bringing COVID. We make sure that the environment has a bubble around it, essentially, to keep everybody safe. But in these unprecedented times, it enables us to engage and talk about artificial intelligence on a regular basis, learn from each other, grow from each other, learn from each other's mistakes, be able to share our expertise with each other. So if you want to get more information about that, the website for that is sandboximpact.com. And it's a community of high-tech, deep tech, and AI and impact folks who like to get together. We also have regular digital meetups where the people that are already in the community in the house will have a whole bunch of people join digitally and have some deep conversations about artificial intelligence. And of course, Dr. Sharif, I'd love for you to join sometime as well. I think you would really enjoy it.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Besides that, we saw from your website, you have different kind of interesting video, short video. If you want to share with our audience, we will be really happy, because sometimes the youth community, those who are asking your questions with this video, maybe it will be really helpful for your company and for them. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Do you see the screen with the her logo?
Yes.
Okay.
Meet Charlotte. She is a mid-career mother of three. Laid off from her most recent job, she now needs to go back to school to learn new skills. Charlotte is worried. A typical classroom has not worked well for her. In large lectures, she gets confused, overwhelmed, and then falls behind. Online learning feels isolating and is challenging when the teacher isn't immediately available for questions. In an ideal scenario, Charlotte would hire a private tutor. A tutor would learn about her, identify and intervene immediately when she gets frustrated or distracted, and keep her on track. Unfortunately, she can't afford a private tutor. Instead, Charlotte is using Ahura's revolutionary learning platform. Ahura is an artificial intelligence-based one-on-one instructor. Just like a private tutor, Ahura assesses her performance and body language to see if she understands. If confused or frustrated, Ahura adapts to help her learn. If Charlotte is confused, Ahura will adapt in order to explain the material in a different way that she understands. If she is distracted, Ahura will pause or engage her with more interesting material. If Charlotte is stressed, Ahura relaxes the difficulty so that she can build confidence. Ahura, one-to-one instruction using artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Beside that, for the youth community, do you arrange any kind of conference or any summit or anything? Yes, anything in your mind that they can join and they can know more about you and about your company? And with your permissions, we want to share some of your Facebook profile, because and pictures and some of the things. You are very active with your team. You actually do a lot of activities. Just maybe our youth community can get some sort of fun from your team. Yeah.
Sure. So we haven't done anything for the youth community yet, but I'm very open to it. I'm very open to potentially doing some kind of video call where we can maybe do it on Zoom or something and engage with the youth community, maybe give some advice, get a lot of their questions, share some knowledge about the direction that the world is going, give them some feedback about ideal ways that, or things that they can study, or ways that they can engage with artificial intelligence or quantum computing or crypto or some of these other very interesting new technologies to enable them to position themselves well. I think that's a fantastic idea. And Dr. Sharif, maybe we can speak online and offline rather, and come up with a date where I can make myself available and several members of my team to answer questions for the youth and kind of give them some direction.
Mhm. Excellent, excellent. Basically, we have a lot of plans from November. So actually, November already started. So we engage with a lot of communities, and we trying to bring the knowledge-based people like you.
Mhm.
Maybe many people do not know about you. Maybe from the many people skills they have to. If they know about you, about the people like you, they can develop their careers, and many things may be possible.
Mhm.
Beside that, in the COVID periods, what your predictions about the job markets? How the economy will overcome from these situations?
Sure. So my prediction is unfortunately that COVID will go on for a minimum of 2 more years and will probably last somewhere closer to 4 to 5 years. What you're likely to see is it's going to take some time for the vaccines to actually come out. And even when they come out, just like vaccines for the flu, they will only provide relief for some strains of the coronavirus. But keep in mind that coronavirus and every single type of coronavirus, including COVID-19, is likely to continue mutating into different forms, which will mean that it will continue to come out. So the likely situation is that we're not going to go back to what the pre-COVID world used to look like. And so I think for anybody that's watching and for anybody that's going through life, I think it's important to realize that part of the reason the human race has been so successful over the past 200,000 years on Earth is because we have been very adaptable to changing environments. And the reality of the situation is we're moving into a new environment. And the folks who learn to adapt to this new reality are going to succeed. And folks who keep fighting the new reality are going to have difficulty. And so well, my recommendation is for people to figure out how to do their work really effectively from home, how to set themselves up for success, how to find clumps of people where they can quarantine with their quarantine, if you will, because it's really important to be able to have that social interaction, to be able to hug people, to connect with others while staying safe, while keeping your parents and elderly folks in your community safe. And so there are ways around this problem. It's going to impact work. I know in Silicon Valley, most of the corporations with whom I am connected, everyone from some of the top, the FAMGAs of the world, as well as just very large other companies. Quite a few of them have said that they are going to have all of their employees work from home either indefinitely or until well into 2021 or 2022. And so that's just something that I would be aware of for everybody that's listening, that there is a new way of engaging with work, which means that there's a little bit more effort that you'll need to put into connecting with your colleagues and making sure that you have that rapport so you can get work done. You will have to do a lot of work remotely with your customers, whether you're raising money for your company, whether you're closing deals. You're just going to have to learn to be very comfortable on video and on audio and being able to do work remotely with people and still connect and still create those relationships.
Excellent, excellent. There is another question from Mr. Shumon. His question is that, hello sir, how big data methods applied in biostatistics in terms of healthcare and medical data?
Oh, I love that you asked this. I had a long conversation at the World Economic Forum with Kai-Fu Lee about this. There are a lot of potential use cases for using artificial intelligence to find cures for everything from cancer to Alzheimer's to other things. There is a massive, massive opportunity here. Now, we have to balance two competing priorities. One of the competing priorities is using artificial intelligence and big data to solve these terrible diseases. The other competing priority is personal private data and how do you protect that data, because especially our healthcare data is incredibly important, especially in places like the United States and Europe. And so with that in mind, the potential good that can come from being able to collect all this data, to be able to identify in a very granular way the impact of all of our lifestyle choices, the impact of all of the medicines that we take, the impact of everything on our long-term health, as well as how do we create new therapies for some of the worst diseases in the world. And biostatistics is right there at the top. It's a very exciting field, and there's a lot of potential for having a massive, massive impact on healthcare. In fact, quite a few of my friends in Silicon Valley are working on longevity projects. And the expectation from the folks that have been doing this for many years is that in our lifetimes, we'll be able to increase the average lifespan of a human to, at the minimum, 200 or 300 years as a result of using artificial intelligence in biostatistics and being able to identify the things that actually cause aging and being able to solve for those using AI. So you're on the right track. I'm very interested in your perspectives on that as well. I'm sure at some point we'll have a chance to talk.
I think there is more questions from audience. So Rana, hello sir. Are big data database technology already used in mental health to improve fundamental and technical analysis?
That's a good question. To my knowledge, that's not the case. To my knowledge, big data has not been used yet in the mental health space. I don't know the reason for that. I know, especially in the United States, there's a lot of questions around mental health and who owns that data and who has access to it and the ethics around it. So that's a question that we're grappling with and trying to make sure we do the right thing. We have an ethics review board, and there's certain things that we're very careful about. But to my knowledge, it hasn't really been used yet in the mental health space. And it's really exciting that we have an opportunity to do that because mental health is so prevalent. And if we can actually solve a lot of these problems using AI, it can have a very real impact on billions of people.
Excellent. Besides that, actually, like AI playing a very good role. That's okay, and every industry integrated with the AI. So, like futures, you are come up with a lot of idea, which is actually helpful and many things. But my question is that how we can create a better intellectual communities based on this AI, because what I understand from the question from the audience, they have many questions, but they do not get enough answer from the experts. There is a lackings in the maybe in the South Asia Pacific, because my audience, many audience come from South Asia and Asia Pacific's area. So there is a lackings because they want to know more about these things. So
Sure.
how we can build up this community to grow the interest of the youth community, and maybe from the internet they can understand many things, but definitely face to face like discussions and the policy levels involvement is more important. So how your company engage in that particular point, even though I observed that your training is head-to-head training, if I'm not wrong. So yes. So
But
how we can help?
And obviously, I think you're doing a fantastic job of creating that community. I think you're doing an amazing job of making these kind of things accessible by bringing a variety of speakers and bringing people's expertise and enabling people to learn about this kind of material. I think it's brilliant what you're doing. So far, we haven't dedicated resources for leading that kind of community. We're open to participating and helping. Unfortunately, as you know, our team is very small. We all work incredibly long hours. We're running very lean. So we don't necessarily have the resources to fully implement a large-scale solution. I know that in some other scientific communities, there are fantastic science communicators like Neil deGrasse Tyson, before him Carl Sagan and others that are able to communicate physics and quantum mechanics and space and astronomy to people in brilliant ways. I haven't really seen anybody do that for artificial intelligence. Of course, you have Elon, who's like a modern day Iron Man, and everyone loves listening to him talk. But he doesn't really do that many speeches just about AI that aren't related to his company. So I think there's definitely space in the market for a great science communicator to be able to really distribute this kind of information about artificial intelligence. I will say around data, Brittany Kaiser is a very interesting person. So anybody that wants to follow some of the speeches that she's given or the videos, I highly recommend everyone watch The Great Hack. that has more to do with big data and the cautionary tale. There is actually another organization called the Unintended Consequences of Technology Conference. I spoke on that stage in its first year, and now they've been going for several years. If you go on YouTube, you can type in UCOT. There's quite a few speakers that talk about the unintended consequences of technology. A lot of those do have to do with artificial intelligence. So if your audience wants to see those, but again, as I mentioned, I'm very open to having a conversation offline about how I can support your endeavor to create this kind of community.
Excellent. Thank you. Beside that, like, what your future plans? And you have fantastic team. I know recently you ran a Halloween party or something like that. I want to share, with your permission, if you allow me,
of course,
for our audience. Yes, like maybe you have a Halloween parties and many interesting things.
Sure.
So maybe our audience will be really happy with your teams. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm happy to create an opportunity for everyone to meet the people at the Sandbox Impact. We do keep our parties very small. We test everyone for COVID beforehand, but we do like to have fun as well. So this year for Halloween, we had a jungle theme. And so everybody was dressed up as people in the jungle. I was, of course, in the middle. I was a lion. So I was a Lion King. I had a crown. And of course, you can see there was a snake right next to me. Anna is dressed up as a snake. And then there's a tiger on either side of me. And of course, a couple other folks as well. So we had a really good time.
Yes. Beside that, you are a very good speaker. I think that World Economy Forums and many more places, you actually share your experience, and you are highly connected. We see that you have some interesting pictures.
Well, thank you.
So yes. So like how do you want to share your experience with Sir Richard Branson? I think he also visited Malaysia several times. Anyway, so can you just, if you want to share some of your experience or something like that? Yeah.
Well, I was very excited to meet him. He invited me to his island, which is Necker Island, to spend about 5 days with him and a bunch of his friends. We played some tennis, played some chess, had some conversations around Ahura AI and what we're doing and about a potential collaboration. But he's a brilliant man. I mean, I've looked up to him my whole life, read all his books, looked at the way that he engaged with the world. Of course, he put together the elders of the human race with Nelson Mandela and Sir Desmond Tutu and others, or Archbishop Desmond Tutu, rather. I was supposed to go and visit him again on Necker Island this November, so this month, but unfortunately because of COVID, that got pushed back to April. And so I'll be meeting with him again. He is, of course, famously an incredibly impact-focused entrepreneur. He's entered quite a few markets, and he's made his mark on the human race. And so I constantly look up to him and ask myself, as I'm building technologies and as I'm engaging with the world, how would Richard deal with these kind of situations? What would he do to impact people in a positive way? And so I definitely look up to him quite a bit, and I'm looking forward to engaging with him again very soon.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, so beside that, I think that you run a different kind of sessions, and globally you are highly active. And is it your friend or something like that?
Who, that? Yeah. I haven't named him. That's a lemur that I met on Richard Branson's island. And they were incredibly friendly. He has quite a few lemurs. They're very friendly. I fed them, and yeah, he kind of looks like me though, doesn't he?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. This is actually a really interesting sessions, and yes, World Talent Economy Forums. We run our Asia Research and Development Institutes. Beside that, we have our Al Noor Academy in Malaysia, and World Talent Economy Forums. We connected around 122 countries, and we trying to bring the best speakers, best knowledgeable persons, and resourceful person for our community, because we have to grow our economy and we have to grow our youth potential people. And people like you, if you are connected with this community, you can build up our new generations and our new youth community. That is our objective. That's why we do focus more on talent economy, because There are many talents around the world. Hopefully, as much as possible, we can connect with them. We can bring very good result for them. And what your concluding remarks for today?
Well, the concluding remarks I would say is that number one, we're in a radically changing world, and technology has the potential to solve a lot of these problems for us, or it has the potential to make the problems much, much worse. Look, we're in a very interesting time in human history where we can go in one of two directions. We can either have a dystopian hellscape where everything is controlled and we lose freedom and we lose the ability to think for ourselves. Or alternatively, if we act in the appropriate way, we build the technology in the appropriate way that it's human-centric, we can actually leverage that technology to solve problems and create a utopia in the world. And so it's all up to us. It's up to us, our generation, all of you that are listening, to say, hey, we have a choice here. And it's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to just naturally occur that the good things are going to happen. It's going to require the entrepreneurs, the scientists, the youth, the investors, and the experts all to come together and say, you know what, let's use this technology for the good of the human race. And we can make a bunch of money while we do it, but oftentimes when people focus only on the money and ignore the unintended consequences of their actions and ignore the externalities, that's when a lot of those problems come about. And so my goal is to help people realize that you can do well by doing good, and that the world is changing. Our populations are expecting us business people to make the right decisions, to be ethical, to take into account all of the stakeholders and not just the shareholders. Of course, the shareholders are important, but also thinking about the employees, the other stakeholders, the environment, the populations, and so forth, citizens, to make sure that we're doing the right thing for society. And I hope that we all can work together to make the world a better place and to enable everyone to have access to opportunity, access to a good life, access to freedom.
Excellent. Thank you. When you join with us, it's really create a very positive impact, and hopefully we can change many human lives. Thank you for your available time and everything. Thank you.
Have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.